Could you and your family finally receive some much-needed financial relief? The latest on a bipartisan effort to pass a COVID relief bill just in time for the holidays. Plus, new approval paves the way for a COVID vaccine in record time. So why are several cities still suggesting lockdowns that even the ones who impose them don't appear to be following themselves? Rogan O'Hanley joins us live to share his voice. And later, Real America's Voice contributor Ben Bergquam will be joining us live from Las Vegas, where Clark County officials are running inspections of 2020 election voting equipment, what they expect to find. Hello and welcome to News On. I'm Miranda. Thank you so much for joining us. Now for a story that's continuing to make headlines even today. Yesterday, several whistleblowers came forward in a hearing alleging digital manipulation of votes and that several election ballots illegally crossed state lines. Just the News, Carrie Sheffield was there to cover the event and joins us live now in our D.C. Bureau with the very latest. Carrie, can you give us a run through of some of these pretty big allegations here?
Absolutely, Miranda. Thanks for having me. So yes, as you mentioned, there were some whistleblowers at this event in Arlington. This was at a hotel in Arlington. This was run by Phil Klein, who's with the Amistad Project, which is a project of the Thomas More Society. And they've been bringing up lawsuits all across the country in swing states, making allegations of irregularities and things that are just frankly breaking the law when it comes to balloting. And so specifically yesterday in the hotel room at the press conference, there was one whistleblower who alleged that up to 288,000 ballots were put into the bed of his tractor trailer, his truck, and that he drove it, and that he was ordered to do this, by his boss and the higher ups, to bring it across state lines from the state of New York to the state of Pennsylvania, a swing state. Now, there were a lot of questions about and I directly asked Phil at the event, where did these ballots originate then? Who are you saying was the source of these ballots? Because that's 288,000. That's more than the margin of difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump in Pennsylvania. So that was one whistleblower. There was another whistleblower from the state of Wisconsin, and he is a contractor with the U.S. Postal Service. He alleged that there were orders to backdate up to 100,000 ballots, again, more than the margin of the difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, to backdate them illegally, to say that they were received before the deadline, which was November 3rd. He said they were received on November 4th, and that this is something that it just raised a red flag for him.
Carrie, I understand that you actually recorded some video from the hearing, and we want to go ahead and take a quick listen to that, and I want to get your reaction on the back end.
So if we're talking about hundreds of thousands of ballots that came from New York, are you alleging that they were filled out in New York and then counted fraudulently in Pennsylvania? And if so, who are you alleging created or filled out those ballots in New York?
Okay. The question is, are we alleging that the ballots who do we allege completed the ballots, and where do we believe that they were completed and filled out? We are with what Jesse saw, and now we're asking those questions, and we're investigating to find those answers. We have some leads, but I'm not ready to share that at this time. I can tell you, as you have probably inferred, that this evidence that a person transported completed ballots that were already ready for counting and put in these bulk mail trays from New York to Pennsylvania, and that Mr. Stenstrom on election night saw those very same types of trays bringing in ballots late or early in the morning on November 4th, raises serious, serious concerns. We do not know, but we intend to find out.
So, Carrie, I heard him mention Pennsylvania. You mentioned Wisconsin, but also the same allegations being made from the state of Georgia as well, that voter registration applications were allegedly sent to New York City. So it's appearing that, again, if this is true, that this was a widespread problem. What are you hearing?
Well, it's really interesting, Miranda, because these questions keep popping up not only in Georgia as well, but also in Arizona. And it's just you're hearing the legislative hearings where people are coming forward and testifying that they saw with their own lying eyes or their own truthful eyes, according to their own testimony, these irregularities. And yet you have, during the hearing itself yesterday with Phil Klein, the event yesterday in Arlington, this was breaking news with AG William Barr, where he allegedly told the Associated Press that he said there's nothing to see here, folks. There's not going to be enough allegations of fraud to change the outcome. But then you have Catherine Herridge, at CBS News saying she checked in with a spokeswoman at DOJ who said that's not exactly what he said. And Donald Trump retweeted that from Catherine Herridge to say that's not exactly what William Barr said. So you have a lot of he said, she said about what AG Barr has actually been looking into and not looking into. Phil Klein did say that the FBI has been in touch with his organization or people that he's been working with, including Matt Braynard, to ask for evidence related to these questions of voter fraud. So we're continuing to follow this at Just the News. But the big question here is, according to Phil Klein, he said if AG Barr is saying that there is no evidence enough to change the outcome, he said this isn't the right question. It's not about questioning whether it's enough to change the outcome. The number one question first should be, is there any fraud? And if so, why aren't we investigating it?
Yeah, good point. Hearing what you're saying, though, and again, we're running out of time, but the Trump legal team did release a statement that has been posted on the website to Bill Maher's comments on voter fraud, saying, and I just want to paraphrase real quickly, with all due respect to the Attorney General, there hasn't been any semblance of a Department of Justice investigation. We have gathered ample evidence of illegal voting in at least 6 states, which they have examined, and it continues to go on. What's the likelihood, real quickly, Carrie, before we let you go, that the Attorney General's office will investigate these claims of fraud, regardless of whether or not it will change the outcome of the election?
Well, Miranda, I've talked to a lot of experts, and a lot of them say that they, especially people who are allied or wanting to help the Trump camp, to say that they're not, confident. The confidence is waning here. The time crunch is coming up to when the electors are going to have to cast their final votes December 14th. So the deadline is ticking. They are hopeful that they can continue to put the pressure there, and even if it's not, to change this outcome, to make sure that future elections are secure.
Carrie Sheffield joining us live in our D.C. bureau with Just the News. Catch her every morning right here on Real America's Voice News at 9 o'clock Eastern. Thank you so much. Pleasure to have you. Still a lot more to come here on News On. A lot of breaking developments when it comes to COVID. We mentioned a new vaccine, also new guidelines. We're going to discuss that more coming up next. And welcome back to News On. I'm Miranda Khan. As coronavirus continue to skyrocket around the country, we've been talking about this for months. It seems like at least since August, bipartisan lawmakers seem to be finally revealing some kind of framework for a $908 billion coronavirus relief package. They unveiled that yesterday. The bill, backed by senators like New Jersey Democrat Joe Manchin and Louisiana Republican Bill Cassidy. Supposedly, this is what has been outlined. It would provide emergency coronavirus funding for small businesses, unemployment insurance, state and local governments, and even the United States Postal Service for the upcoming months, all of which Senator Manchin says is needed now more so than ever.
Action to provide emergency relief is needed now more than ever before. The people need to know that we are not going to leave until we get something accomplished, or this group that's worked together so diligently. So I'm committed to seeing this through. I truly am. My state of West Virginia depends on it, as long as all of my colleagues, every one of the representative states in the country depends on it. And this is going to get us through the most difficult times. This will run up to the end of the first quarter, April 1, and we hope that we can get the relief that's needed.
And of course, the proposal comes after months of failed attempts from Congress to come up with a second relief bill. Joining us to discuss this and other stories that are making headlines, especially when it concerns COVID, we want to welcome in our next guest. This is several. We've been talking about this for weeks now. Several cities and states considering yet another lockdown. Joining us now to talk more about that is political activist and Florida resident himself. Since that's where we are, Rogan O'Hanley, how you may also know as DC Drano. What a catchy name. I love that.
Thank you, Miranda. It stands for Draining the DC Swamp.
I figured. Very, very, very clever. Did you come up with that all by yourself?
Yeah, I will take the credit for that. But, I think I speak on behalf of a lot of people. We see a lot of corruption in DC. And so I think that's, a big focus for everybody, draining that swamp. That
we do. Okay, so we have a lot of stories and making headlines when it comes to COVID. Again, UK, ending its second national lockdown. This is drug makers Pfizer and BioNTech have won permission for the use of its vaccine in Britain. I mean, this is unprecedented. I mean, what normally can take a decade, they've done in 11 months there. The same expected to happen very quickly here in the U.S. Meanwhile, the CDC here looking to shorten the time of a quarantine. A lot going on here, but also making headlines. In particular, California and New York officials kind of appearing to be hypocritical, if you will, when it comes to imposing some of these very, very strict regulations to kind of curb those COVID spikes, if you will. We've seen all the stories of California legislators going out to Hawaii, meeting, definitely not upholding that distance rule or wearing a mask. We also saw what happened with Governor Newsom there in California, and most recently, San Jose, California Mayor Sam Liccardo being criticized there for telling people, to keep their distance for Thanksgiving, yet he himself went ahead and visited families. And then we're seeing similar situations happening in New York. But then you have Governor DeSantis, who's been adamant about not having another lockdown. So what do you make of all these decisions?
Well, I will say Governor DeSantis is well loved down here in Florida because we are watching what's happening in California, in New York, and we are in awe that they would continue to abuse their states this way and infringe on people's constitutional rights. Governor DeSantis has not only had a very successful track record in terms of, cases, testing, hospitalizations, and a low number of deaths comparatively, as a rate in terms of our population compared to, especially to New York. But, he's showing how you can still honor people's constitutional rights while still protecting people. And he's also looking at the science, the current science. What Governor Cuomo, who has the highest death count in the country, and Governor Newsom are doing are enacting policies that we enacted when we thought this was going to kill 2.5% to 3% of all Americans that it infected. So back in March and April, there was a severe panic. We were getting notices from the WHO that this was spreading, high death counts. And so we said, all right, we're going to go into these unprecedented lockdowns, 15 days to slow the spread. And now we're coming up on month 8, I think, of these types of, lockdown policies in some states. And we're seeing that it's not slowing the spread. It's only delaying the spread. And that's what Governor DeSantis has said publicly. These lockdowns don't work. Our economy is back open. We need to support middle-class Americans and, have a sense of sanity in all this. We have to learn to live with these conditions, especially for a disease with a 99.9% survival rate, depending on your age and comorbidities.
Well, you mentioned the World Health Organization. Even the World Health Organization fairly recently said and put out there that it also believes that lockdowns don't work. However, I've seen Republicans and Democrats, use that side information from the World Health Organization and then argue against the World Health Organization, if you will. I mean, just recently, World Health Organization now wanting stricter guidelines when it comes to the use of mask wearing. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if people watching have been following me for a while, they know pretty much where I stand on masks. Back in May, I didn't wear a mask out to a bar in Florida, and it was when we were one of the first states to reopen, and a lot of other people weren't wearing them, and I tweeted a video of myself doing that, and President Trump retweeted it. It went viral. But, I've just seen where these places have mandatory mask policies, they're still going into lockdown. So either the masks work or they don't. And if the lockdowns work, why are we doing them again? Or why are these states doing them again? Doesn't make too much sense to me. I am very happy that President Trump has effectively severed relations with the World Health Organization. They clearly seem to be a puppet of Chinese propaganda. Their data, they flip-flop back and forth. We already have enough of that in D.C. The last thing we need is an international organization telling us what to do. But, there's a lot more science out. It's showing that, masks are not necessarily that effective. There was a Danish study that came out recently that many medical journals refused to publish, and it was the largest study showing that masks effectively don't work, and if anything, they actually are worse for people. So, the science is debatable. There's no denying that. We're still figuring this out as we go. But to have these draconian measures that infringe on constitutional rights, that are destroying small businesses, we have to tread more carefully. We have to, let American people decide what risks they want to take. If they want to stay inside, great. If they want to go out in public, let them.
Well, let's talk about real quickly, because we're running out of time, but I want to make sure we get to this. I mean, for months now, we've been hearing Congress go back and forth, and even members of Trump's administration trying to weigh in to come up with some kind of COVID relief bill. Now we're hearing it's going to be unveiled today. What do you think the likelihood is that this bill will actually be passed, and again, before the new year?
I am actually optimistic. I think a lot of the clogging in terms of getting this bill passed was from Democrats trying to push through a wish list under, this chaotic pretense. And, they're trying to get mandatory mail-in ballots nationwide. They're trying to get, more immigration. They're trying to get rid of bail. I mean, the stuff that they were putting in there was, an AOC wish list where people across America are fighting to keep the lights on and to stay in their homes. And, I will say from a bipartisan perspective, irrespective of, Republican or Democrat, if you are going to lock down people, you better pay them. I had a mother. Well,
at least at the very least, not accept a salary, right? How bad does that look? That you're still getting paid with our tax dollars, but you haven't passed a COVID relief bill. Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. Really do appreciate it. Hope to have you back on again. And love looking at your tweets, by the way. Still ahead here, Real America's Voice, Ben Bergquam joins us live from Vegas, where voting equipment is being inspected. What they expect to find. Also, Sophie Mann with Just the News gives us the latest on stories that are trending right now. And welcome back to News On. In election news, 55, this is a huge story, 55 uncounted ballots were found this week for an upstate New York congressional race. This is very dramatic for New York's Chenango County, as these ballots do have the potential to change the outcome of the race. Razor-thin margin, this one, between Democrat Congressman Anthony Redenzi and Republican candidate Claudia Tenney, where Tenney is now holding the lead again. Very thin margin. Adding to the uncertainty, 11 of the 50 ballots are likely from unregistered voters, so this investigation will continue. Extremely tight race. All right, today in Las Vegas, meanwhile, an investigation is happening to look into 2020 voting machines and even sealed containers that were used near vote counting areas. Joining us live now from Vegas to give us the very latest on this investigation is Real America's Voice, Ben Berquam. So, Ben, how exactly are they conducting this investigation, and what do they expect to find?
Well, I spoke to the team yesterday at the Clark County Elections Office, and they said yesterday was phase one. They were a little frustrated when they left the building, and I spoke to them this morning. We'll be meeting back up with them later today, and basically what they said was they were given a guided tour of the facility, but weren't given access to the critical computers that they need to test, and weren't given any access to do any of the forensic analysis that the judge has ordered. So that is what they're trying to do. They're trying to find out if these machines were tampered with, if information was either sent from them or input into them, if votes were changed, if there's any way of showing that, and then also checking the verification, the signature verification machines as well. So there's several. They've got about 10 items on the list that they were anticipating being able to do here in Clark County yesterday, which they have yet to be able to do. They have to go back to the judge again this morning and basically say that, you know, what they're allowing us to do is not what you've given us authorization to do. And so we're going to be meeting up with them at noon Pacific time and seeing if they can't get that. But at the end of the day, it's trying to figure out if votes were changed, if the vote is accurate here. Right. And they don't believe it is. They believe that the votes have been changed, that the signature verification wasn't accurate, and so there's a whole host of issues that they're looking into.
Yeah, you mentioned 10, but real quickly, I mean, we've been hearing for the past few weeks, Dominion. Dominion involved in this in any way whatsoever?
Yes. Yep, that's one of the 10 listed, access to the Dominion machines to find out if, in particular, if the USB drive was used at all. So if anything was input through the USB drive and or if they were connected to the internet and if information was sent back and forth. We've heard from almost every state in question that they were connected to the internet, and when election officials were asked, they refused to prove whether or not they were or not. And that's really what a lot of this comes down to is there seems to be an unwillingness to show the information. We keep hearing, well, there's no vote fraud, there's no voter fraud, and I've heard that for 20 years in California. The problem is they never investigate it. And until you actually do the real investigation, you can't say whether or not there's been vote fraud. And that's what the President Trump administration and Sidney Powell's legal team, which is here on the ground, are trying to accomplish.
And again, you're going to be monitoring that situation. I'm guessing, since you said Pacific time, that'll be 3 o'clock, trying to do my math right now, 3 o'clock Eastern time.
That's right. That's
for
right.
the rest of us. So keep it right here on Real America's Voice for the very latest updates. As always, Ben Berquam, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Now for some news on what many referring to as President-elect Joe Biden. We here at Real America's Voice are still waiting for certification from all the states. We now want to go to our very own Sophie Mann, who joins us live in our D.C. bureau with just the news. Sophie, what can you tell us? The Joe Biden has yet to schedule a meeting, we've heard, with the NAACP. What should we make of this, especially after his, displayed this support, if you will, for this whole Black Lives Matter movement?
Hi, Miranda. Yeah, that's right. So reports coming out of the NAACP today, yesterday, as well as several other high-profile civil rights groups, basically they're saying that in the wake of the November 3rd election, the Biden team that is staffed up with their transition effort have yet to reach out to schedule meetings of an advisory nature to discuss, among other things, cabinet picks. So the past week or 10 days or so, Joe Biden has been unrolling a number of his cabinet secretary picks. And what the NAACP right now is latching onto specifically is how few of them have been choices of color, specifically African Americans. Though that is sort of a contested theory in its own right, given that the Biden campaign has actually selected upwards of 10 African Americans for high-ranking positions. The NAACP is now latching onto the fact that none of the tippy top tier positions have gone to men or women of African descent. And by tippy top, I mean Secretary of Defense, Attorney General, Secretary of the Treasury. So Biden hasn't actually announced his Attorney General or Secretary of Defense picks just yet, which is why the NAACP is actually so concerned right now. They want to meet with the Biden campaign. They want to lobby their choices. They effectively want to say, we showed up for you. Our community came out for you. We were such fervent supporters of this campaign. Even when you were not doing well in the primary, African Americans showed up in South Carolina after Jim Clyburn famously endorsed Biden. He began that upward trajectory of beginning to win primaries to eventually become the Democratic nominee. So they're sort of looking for a return on that investment at this point. So any
names topping the list? Sorry to interrupt, Sophie, but any names topping the list? We'd love to hear them.
You're so fine. Yeah, so floating around for Attorney General is Jay Johnson, who was the Director of Homeland Security during President Obama's tenure, or at least most of it. So Biden, we know, has an outstanding relationship with him. He is a practicing attorney at present, so he's among those being floated for that top job. Secretary of Defense, it's a little bit less clear, but I think what's important to remember is that this is a lobbying group, an affinity group coming to Biden asking for what they want, and we know that there are a lot of competing interests, and that all else being equal, Biden has actually already chosen a very, very diverse group.
But a group nonetheless that's pretty familiar to most people. Right? That's what a lot of progressives are criticizing, is they'd like to see some fresh blood in there, not just a repeat of what we saw when President Obama served as president of the United States. We're running out of time, but I do real quickly want to dive into some news again when it comes to COVID. Again, there's a bipartisan push to pass another relief bill, but Mitch McConnell also made clear that this is a priority with a Just a News report. Give us the latest on that.
Yes, that's right. So Mitch McConnell said early this week that he does not believe that the American people and the American government can afford to wait until the new class of senators and Congress people are sworn in. There needs to be a COVID relief bill that passes now. The last one happened, about 8 months ago. That's a long time between the two. There is, as you mentioned before on the program, this omnibus package being spoken about right now that's worth just shy of $1 trillion. Chuck Schumer is speaking somewhat positively of it, saying he's reviewing it with his people now and is not in disagreement that this is, a significant thing that is in need right now by the American people. And so it's tight. These dates are tight. There's not that much time for Congress and the Senate to do this. But, if this is a team effort, as the first one was, it seems like there is some real possibility that this large package will be passed in the near, perhaps immediate future.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. That's what everyone wants to know, is the timeline, because I think a lot of people didn't anticipate that it would take this long and that they would go away for the holidays without passing a relief bill. Nonetheless, we'll cross our fingers that something does in fact happen, because so many people out there could really use the relief. Sophie Mann joining us live with our Just a News partners in our D.C. Bureau. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Still to come here on News On. Again, we're going to share the most important voice that you will hear on this program, and that is the voice of America. When we share your voice, again, the question that is continuing to garner up a lot of attention, we're asking you what you think the prospects are when it comes to the president's legal filings. Will it have an impact? In fact, will they end up headed to the Supreme Court? That is the question we're asking. A look at what some of you have to say still to come. Also, a complete look at your nationwide weather forecast from Weather Nation's Patrick Crawford coming up. Time now to get a look at your latest forecast with Weather Nation's Patrick Crawford for your nationwide forecast.
Weather Nation meteorologist Patrick Crawford here with a look at some of the top weather headlines across the country. Northeast still been dealing with some snowy conditions. We're actually continuing to watch that lake effect potential across the eastern shores of Lake Ontario. Cities like Watertown, New York still could see several inches of snow before this energy finally makes its way out of the northeastern United States. As we track that energy, there's some of that snow that's on the way the rest of today. Syracuse up through Watertown, Kingston going to see some of that. And then we'll have some spotty snow showers and some of the higher elevations through eastern New York, over into Vermont, New Hampshire, and even up into northern Maine. This is all the way through the rest of tonight. By early tomorrow morning, we'll really start to see things clearing out. But that doesn't mean we're done with some of the hazardous travel conditions. Still going to be dealing with a lot of slick roads. And then, of course, with the snow, those secondary roadways maybe not getting plowed or treated as much. So those could be still on the hazardous side. Additional snow, we're looking at about another 1 to 3 inches there through western New York, especially closer to places like Lake Ontario. So Syracuse going to keep that snow chance, at least for the first half of today there. We'll get temperatures warmer. There's another system that's on the way. That's going to bring some rainy conditions Friday and Saturday. And then maybe we start to get some more of that lake effect potential, some of those northwesterly winds coming off the Great Lakes. So we'll keep an eye on that. Might have some snow for Syracuse on Sunday and Monday. This is just one of the top weather headlines we're tracking. Meteorologist Chelsea Ambrose joins me now with that other headline.
The other one is the next system that is moving in. This is the one that brings that rain back to the Northeast Friday and Saturday. As you can see, there are ongoing alerts this afternoon and into the overnight hours for Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Colorado, and New Mexico, where we could easily put down 4 to 7 inches in some of those higher spots of New Mexico. And then as you work your way into the Central Plains, where it's been snowing already since this morning, some isolated spots might be anywhere from 6 to 10, localized up to 12 inches. This continues to track to the east as we go through the day today and eventually winding down as we head into the overnight hours in tomorrow. But this is the bullseye region where we could put down the most snow between Garden City and Woodward, Oklahoma. That's where we could put down maybe a foot in some of those isolated spots. Now that's on the warm side of things. Southern side of things, there is a severe weather element. There could be some isolated tornadoes that try and get fired up this afternoon. That's because there's a natural spin taking place in the atmosphere. Look how big the model is indicating some of these storms are going to be. There could be some rotation. Some of the heaviest of the action does stay off the coast, but that doesn't mean we won't have a couple of squall lines giving us straight downdraft winds or even that possibility of the tornado threat. This continues to work its way through the eastern half of the country through the rest of this week and into the weekend, which brings us that next round of rain, high mountain snow as we head into the weekend for the Northeast. These are some of the top weather headlines. Remember, you can always go to weathernationtv.com for your local forecast.
Amidst the lawsuits filed by the Trump campaign, President Trump making more headlines today. The president says he'll veto a defense bill unless Section 230 is terminated. He said this in this tweet: Section 230, which is a liability gift from the U.S. to big tech, the only companies in America that have it. Corporate welfare is a serious threat to our national security and election integrity. Our country can never be safe and secure if we allow it to stand, he says. He then goes on to say that if Section 230 is not terminated as part of the National Defense Authorization Act, then he will be forced to veto it. Section 230 states that no provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as a publisher or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider. Still to come here, a 40-foot statue honors a Christmas classic. Any guesses as to what that Christmas classic could be? Here's a hint. It's not Italian, but it is Fragile. Hope that didn't give it away. Also, still to come, we're going to share your voice. We're going to hear what America has to say when it comes to all these legal filings from Trump's legal team. Do you think any of them will actually wind up to the Supreme Court? We'll have a look at what some of you have to say. Still to come here on News On. We'll be right back. welcome back to News On. It's time to share the most important voice of this network, and that is, of course, your voice. Here to help us do that, you can always go to our community platform, which you can find on our website at americasvoice.news. You can also find us all over social media. You name it, we're there at Real America's Voice and Real Miranda Con. All right. And don't forget, send us video. Yes, we love comments, we love private messages, but even more, we love to see your beautiful face. So here's our question that, again, is garnering up a lot of attention. So President Donald J. Trump says, he's uncertain whether his election lawsuits will end up in court. So we asked you, what do you think? Let's start off with, I would say, a pretty familiar face here. Anthony Brennan sent us, you guessed it, a video. Let's hear what he had to say.
Hello to Miranda Con and America's Voice News. To answer the question on whether or not the Supreme Court will hear these claims by the Trump legal team, I say as of right now that is a no. The big difference between this election and the 2000 election with Bush and Gore is that in 2000, the Florida Supreme Court stopped the election from being certified, whereas in this election, as far as I know, all of the elections are being certified. That's how I come down.
Yeah, there's still a couple states that are going to be certified, but we're, of course, keeping tabs on it. Thank you so much, Anthony. Next, we have Kyle Davis on Twitter saying this. Sidney Powell has the best opportunity. A civil rights case may not be the heart of it, but the most likely to be heard. State courts and judges and governors have clearly bypassed the legislation and broken constitutional law legally. They should. If Supreme Court is not corrupt, yes. Thank you, Kyle. Good to hear your voice. Looks like in response to Kyle, though, we have Dallas Nicole saying this. Sidney Powell is in federal court when she should be in state court. Pundits have said she filled in the wrong court at their smokescreen for Trump supporters. Thank you, Dallas Nicole. And also on Twitter, we have President-elect S. Thomas says simply, absolutely will. Thank you, President-elect. And Lola on Twitter saying this, yep, he's a genius. He anticipated all the moves and had his ducats all in line. Lots of laughs, laughing face. Thank you, Lola. And next, last but certainly not least, we have Old Gaffer on Cloud Hub saying this, if we still have uncorrupted people willing to let the truth out, it may be taken care of before getting that far. I have my doubts, though. I think it will have to go to SCOTUS. Thank you, oldie but a goodie, right? And thank you all for sharing your voice with us. That question is still up on social media because we still have plenty of you responding. And so we want to give you ample time to do that. So here's the question once again. President Trump says he's uncertain whether his election lawsuits will end up in court. We're, of course, asking you what you want to think. We appreciate the comments. We really love it, though, when we get to see video. So be sure and submit that if you can. It doesn't have to be long, 30 seconds. Again, you'll find us on Facebook, Instagram, Cloud Hub, Parlay, Twitter, you name it, we're there. Still to come, if you are the ultimate dog lover, well, then you better know what today is. Your dog's going to get you otherwise. We'll be right back. lovers across the country are celebrating their mixed breed dogs today. That's because it's National Mutt Day. These pups are so special that they actually get not one, but 2 days a year. Yep, one in December and another in July. I mean, they deserve it. Look at those faces. Celebrity pet expert and animal advocate Colleen Page started National Mutt Day back in 2005. The day is an opportunity to spotlight mixed breed dogs, including millions who are in shelters waiting to be adopted into a new home. If you're not up to adopting a new pet, you might celebrate National Mutt Day by donating or volunteering at a shelter. You can also share your enthusiasm for mixed breeds on social media using the hashtag National Mutt Day. They deserve it, right? So, have you seen the major award in Oklahoma? Well, if not, check this out and let's give them, wow, can we, a nice little round of applause. Yep. Just like the famous award in the movie A Christmas Story, Oklahoma has set up its very own leg lamp. Except this one, well, it's 40 feet tall. It's displayed as part of the annual Festival of Light in Chickasha. Yeah, the idea is a brainchild of a local economic council. He says he hopes it gives travelers, well, just a good reason to stop by. The festival, which also includes a 70-foot Christmas tree, will be up through the end of the month. I think that's a good idea. Do you think it's fragile? Just curious. All right, a dream is a wish your heart makes. See what wish came true for a boy in Utah. He had a very special surprise for his birthday. A call from Minnie Mouse. Look at that face. Thanks to a community Facebook group, his mother was able to get in touch from the real voice of Minnie Mouse. Look at that face. I love seeing that smile, right? Can't help but smile. The boy says all he wanted for his birthday, that's it, was to talk to his favorite Disney character on the phone. And with the help of the Herman Happenings group, his mom was able to make his wish come true. And he also got a trip to Disneyland, or I'm sorry, not a trip to Disneyland, I mean Disneyland themed cake. You know, hey, beggars can't be choosers. And a drawing of Minnie Mouse made just for him. Dreams really do come true. Love that. All right, maybe he'll get to go to Disney after that when it kind of reopens. It's not reopened everywhere. All right, this is a gesture that would make any parent proud. I mean, who doesn't love this? So a boy from Pennsylvania, you know, he realized he had everything he could possibly need for Christmas. So he decided to help out other children whose families are struggling. An idea struck him to produce an item that many of us use today, at least we should be using now, and that is, of course, hand sanitizer. That's when the production of, you wait for it, hand Santa-tizer began. Like that? Clever. He has already sent out 500 bottles all across the country, and he will use that money, he says, to buy gifts for needy kids just in time for Christmas. Kudos to the parents. I say you done good. That's a beautiful, sweet, loving little boy. Definitely on Santa's good list. All right, that will do it for this edition of News On. As always, you can follow us on social media and be sure and answer our question of the day. Again, we are asking you whether or not you think any of the president's legal team, if any of these lawsuits from the Trump campaign will actually wind up headed to the Supreme Court. We've heard senators like Senator Ted Cruz saying that he believes it should, especially when it comes to Pennsylvania. But we're asking you, do you think it will happen? You can find us on Facebook. Again, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Parlay, and we're on CloudHub. There, I think I got it covered. You can find me at Real Miranda Khan. You can also look for that question at Real America's Voice. And don't forget to join our community platform on our website at americasvoice.news. And take us on the go with you. Download our app. As always, thank you so much for watching. Again, we have Ben Berquam joining us live in Vegas. They're expecting a meeting there as they're going to look into some of the equipment there when it came to casting votes. He's supposed to have an update around, give or take, 3 o'clock Eastern. Keep it right here. We'll see you back here tomorrow at noon Eastern. Bye.